Hello, welcome to the special July 4th edition of On the Waterfront here on Sparks 1524. I'm Nathaniel Miller. Once again, we are sailing into history with memories of USS Ponce, LPD-15. Now, Ponce retired in 2017, and sadly, she's now at a scrapyard in Texas. Her long and storied career is over, but her story is not forgotten. And today, I'd like to take you back to the chapter entitled July 1st to 4th, 2011 in Bristol, Rhode Island. Now, Bristol was founded in the late 17th century as part of the Massachusetts colony. And in 1747, the late 18th century, or the middle of the 18th century, the British Crown transferred it from Massachusetts to Rhode Island. The first mention of an Independence Day celebration in Bristol came from, of all people, a British officer in 1777. British officer reported that they heard ships in the Bristol harbor firing 13 cannons in the morning and then 13 cannons in the afternoon, which they supposed were the rebel colonies celebrating their independence. 1785, Bristol began what has grown into the longest continually running July 4th parade, celebration, municipal celebration in the country. It's called Patriotic Events, and it actually starts on June 14th on Flag Day and runs through the 4th of July. So if you get to Bristol, Rhode Island, June 14th to July 4th, you will be enveloped in flags and bunting and patriotic fervor. Now, Ponce, we'd had a rather difficult deployment from 2010 to 11. Just a lot happened. We'd been through a lot. We'd come home, and now we were coming off of a couple of months period of leave, and we're getting ready to get back underway and start, doing what Navy ships do. Sail. We were taking on board a bunch of midshipmen from the Naval Academy for their summer training cruise as we began our summer operations, and our first operation after the deployment was going to Bristol, Rhode Island to represent the Navy for the July 4th celebrations. Now, my family has a bit of a Rhode Island connection. My father's people had settled originally in Quebec and come into the United States through Rhode Island, settling in Woonsocket before my great-grandfather branched out and wound up in Hawaii, where he founded my grandfather, who founded my father, who went to Texas, met my mother, and founded my brother and I. I come from a long line of founders, and I'm very proud of that founding principle of my family. I was the ship's public affairs officer. I was an E6, a mass communication specialist first class, but I was the ship's public affairs officer. And although I'd hoped I might have enough time to grab a rental car and go to Woonsocket and visit the ancestral graveyard, I knew it probably wasn't going to happen. But I'm still the first Miller in about 100 years who's coming back to Rhode Island. So for me personally, it was kind of a cool little side note to the larger celebration of July 4th. If the Walt Disney Corporation wanted to build a New England theme park, to me, I think Bristol would be the model that they would use for the seaside town. The water is gorgeous. There are magnificent bridges spanning the waterways. There are lighthouses on little rocky islands. There are mansions on little rocky islands. It's just a gorgeous place. And it's also steeped in American history because it was there for our Revolution. Bristol was shelled at least twice during the Revolution by British forces. Now, as a ship's public affairs officer, one of my jobs, of course, was always to follow the commanding officer whenever he or she had official business to attend to that, like meet and greets, all the basic protocol things. Now, our commanding officer at this time was Commander Cole Hayes, and of course, referred to him as captain because he was captain of the ship. He, of course, had to meet the town officials and the town coordinator, or town administrator, whose name I do not have anymore. Sadly, that information was on a hard drive that crashed a long time ago. The idea for this video, this particular story, didn't occur to me until yesterday, July 2nd, which was a Saturday. So, unfortunately, I don't have time to contact the Bristol Town Council and see if I can track down this woman's name from 2011. The old term firecracker comes to mind. She was bursting with energy, very happy, very cheerful, the kind of person you realize is a natural leader because people just gravitate to want to listen to her because she is so upbeat. She's so full of energy. She just commands the room. She was very gregarious, very interested that I was a public affairs officer acting as one even though I'm enlisted, and you're a one-man band effectively. You're doing all of this. It was very flattering until she found out my family was from Rhode Island and I'm the first one to come back in 100 years. You would have thought a Medal of Honor winner had just walked into her office. She was so gushing about, oh, this is so awesome. It's July 4th and you're here with the Navy and you're coming back with your family. Bubbly. And it gets cornier, by the way. This situation gets even cornier as we go on. Well, Captain Hayes, of course, was one of the featured speakers before the parade on July 1st kicked off. He gave some very, appropriate short remarks, and he kept them. He made a point of keeping them short. A couple other people gave speeches. Town coordinator, town administrator, she gets up and gives her remarks. But before she officially declares the parade open and beginning, she looks and says, "Petty Officer Miller, where are you? Ah, Petty Officer Miller, where are you? Wave, wave." So, "Hi, ma'am." I don't yell that, but I wave. And she proceeds to tell the crowd that my family entered the United States through Rhode Island, and I'm the first one of us to come back in 100 years. I got a standing ovation. And I did not know what to do. I did not do the princess wave. No, I did the sailor wave. But it was quite a moment. And because she singled me out for that kind of recognition, made it very personal beyond the fact that I'm part of this little dump truck of a ship that this town is welcoming as though we're the actual Constitution herself come to port. The parade was a hoot. Funny cars bouncing around, entire continental armies of reenactors in Revolutionary era uniforms and civilian dress. You'd have companies of reenactors come down the street with their muskets, stop, load, fire, volley, march on down, stop, load, fire another volley, demonstrating the techniques for using these weapons to the crowd. Now, the Ponce Ship's Company, we formed a large formation to march. Now, I wasn't in the formation because I'm on the side photographing it. So I got to see my shipmates, led by our XO, Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, and how the crowd is reacting to those shipmates. You would have thought we were the crew of the greatest battleship the Navy ever built, the way these people went nuts when our formation came through. I swear these people shouted and air horn and everything louder than a New Year's Eve crowd at Times Square. All for us. It wasn't all guns and roses. It wasn't all peaches and roses. On July 1st or 2nd, I can't remember which day, because again, so much information got lost on that one hard drive. We played softball against one of the Bristol teams. Our ship did. I don't remember if we won or lost. What I do remember was our command master chief accidentally knocking an infant in the head with a ball. Now, before you blame him, we were playing on a field with a nice big open stretch of land that slowly led down to the waterfront. And there were a number of families that had camped out to watch the game in the outfield. Yet our outfielders go a few more yards. You had families set up with picnic baskets and everything watching the game, which none of us understood because these people are all right in the flight path of a ball, which is what happened. Our command master chief came up to bat, nailed a beautiful home run, flew over the head of their outfield, right into the forehead of an infant in a crib. The infant was okay in the end. I mean, ambulance came, got him to the hospital, but we found out that night the infant was okay. Nice big old bruise, but nothing else. Our command master chief, oh my God, he wasn't quite right the rest of the visit, and I can't blame him because that's a horrible thing to happen. But most of us were really just pissed at these people who thought that watching a softball game from the outfield, especially when you have infants, is a smart idea because that's where all the projectiles are heading. It was nice being on a ship that was the representative for the Navy during this event. It was even nicer that the town turned out in such force to welcome us and make us a part of their town. Every shop we went to that I visited, every restaurant that I visited, welcome Ponce, welcome Proud Lions, some kind of sign up, even if it was handmade on construction paper. It didn't matter. They had stuff welcoming us. It's the kind of thing you hear about that you don't expect to experience, but when you do, you never forget it. And it was a July 4th to remember. As you go forward with your own July 4th, enjoy the barbecues, enjoy the fireworks displays, enjoy all the festive paraphernalia, but take a minute to remember why this holiday is important, especially at a time in our country's history where there are a lot of cultural divisions among us. There are a lot of people who will try and tear down our country and say that we're not special, that July 4th shouldn't be celebrated, usually with a expletive beginning with the letter F and ending with a K. But they're missing the point. Our founders were not, as people like to denigrate them, rich white guys who didn't want to pay taxes. They were British citizens, British subjects, who were being taxed without any representation in that government. And when they founded the country, as imperfectly, as messy as it was, and it was a very messy, convoluted series of events between the Declaration of Independence and finally ratifying the Constitution many years later, the basic ideal was This was a place for freedom. Now, what does that mean? 200 years later, 240 years later, we're still, or 20 years later, excuse me, we're still wrestling with what does it mean? What is the boundary, the definition, and the healthy limits of human freedom in a civil society? The same debates that sparked the revolution, the same debates that actually led to the Civil War. But our founders put in place a system that lets us argue these out mostly peacefully, as long as we remember that just about everybody we're talking to is trying to get to the same place, an America that is that city shining on the hill. And as divided as we may be as a culture, it's important to remember that we are the first nation in the world founded on principles of freedom, founded to expand the definition of freedom. And once you open that door, it never stopped. It's a messy, difficult process, but that's what makes our country great, is we are the country trying to expand the boundaries of freedom. What those boundaries look like, we will always be arguing over. It will never stop. But because we are that city on the hill, that debate can happen, and happen largely peacefully, without armies storming back and forth across the landscape, devastating everything. So take a minute this July 4th and remember why this country is important, even if you don't like the track of the current government that we have in office, or you don't like certain policies. That's fine. It's completely fine. But we have the freedom to have those debates and have those arguments because this country was founded to expand the definition of human freedom, and we've been doing it for over 200 years. That is something to celebrate. Thank you for your time. If you didn't like this video, but you stuck with me, I appreciate it. If you did like this video, I'd ask you to hit that little like button, share it, please do. Hit the subscribe button if you want to follow my ongoing programming. Until we meet again here on Sparks 1524, I do wish you a happy July 4th, a happy Independence Day, whichever one you prefer. I hope you get out and have a really good time. And until we meet again, always go and do great things.